Drop it.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Izzatul Namrita Anwar. My matric number is 2020616494. Today, our group will present the assignment entitled The Inflation Rate in September Higher Compared with a Year Ago. So, this is my group members. Without delay, let's proceed with the introduction first.
Hi, my name is Nur Asnita binti Muhammad Nasir. My matrix number is 2020626378 and I will present the introductions. Okay, first is demographics of the population in Malaysia. Malaysia has a diverse population that is multiracial, multireligious and multi-ethnic. Malaysians are divided into three major ethnic groups, which is Malays, Chinese and Indians. Apart from that, there are orang asli indigenous peoples in Peninsular Malaysia who are separated into three races, which is Negrito, Sonoy and Proto-Malays. The state of Sabah has the biggest ethnic group with 32 ethnic groups, the bulk of which are Kadazan Dusun ethnic groups with diverse dialects and traditions. Sarawak's population is made up of 27 ethnic groups, with the Iban being the most numerous, followed by the Bidayo, Melanau and Orang Ulu. The largest number was 68.6% for Bumiputra, followed by 23.4% for Chinese, 7% for Indians, and 1% for others. In 2016, there was no notable variation in population distribution by age when compared to 2015. The number of children aged 0 to 14 years fell by 0.4% as compared to 2015. So next is definition of inflation. Inflation is defined as a gradual increase in the overall price level of goods and services in a given economy. As the all-in price level rises, each unit of cash can only buy fewer products and services than before. As a result, inflation indicates a loss of real value in the medium of internal exchange and units of account in an economy, as well as a drop in the purchasing power of money. The inflation rate, which is the yearly percentage change in a general price index over time, is a crucial indicator of price inflation.
My name is Nur Ejazati Afrina binti Nur Azam. My matric number is 2020810292. I will present about the issue in paper cutting based on chapter 10. The issue of paper cutting that we are dealing with is related to the inflation rate that is occurring in Malaysia in September, rose 2.2% from a years earlier. The straight month of increase due to the base effect last year and the rise in the rate was slightly above Reuters' forecast of 2.1%. As Malaysians, we are all too familiar with the term inflation. In almost every mass media outlet, whether print or electronic, the problem of inflation is frequently highlighted. Higher inflation due to increased demand in tandem with the reopening of the domestic and global economies also push up prices. In addition, inflation can occur due to an imbalance of supply and demand. For example, the higher the price of goods, the lower the quantity of goods demanded because not all people can afford to purchase expensive items. That is why people fancy to buy goods in cheap prices whereby they can save their budgets, let's say if something happens in the future. In order for an economy to experience inflation, price for most goods in Malaysia, such as food and non-alcoholic beverage, increased 1.9% and the highest increase was recorded by meat, 5.8%, mainly due to the increase in the average price of chicken in September 2021 to RM 9 ringgit 35 per kg as compared to RM 8 ringgit 50 a years ago. The data also show furnishings, household equipment and routine household maintenance increased by 1.7%, followed by housing, water, electricity, gas and other foods 0.7%, education, service and culture. Besides that, both restaurants and hotel and health registered a marginal increase of 0.3%, while alcoholic beverage and tobacco rose by 0.4%. All these things must rise and remain stable for an extended period of time. Inflation does not always occur when only a few goods or services rise in price. However, inflation levels can rise sharply as a result of events beyond the government's control, such as the effect of unemployment, falling currency values, and political unrest. As a result, it is government's responsibility to carry out its studies wisely in order to ascertain initiative to help strengthen price. To overcome the problem of inflation in Malaysia, the government needs to increase the tag price due to the fact that when the tag price rises, the total income of the people will decrease. When that happens, the power of buyer will also decrease and the demand for goods and services will also decrease. Besides, seller will lose their source of income, then the price of goods will fall. Hence, there are numerous methods for calculating inflation. The first of which is the GDP deflator. The GDP deflator is a measure of pristine prices for goods and products and services generated domestically in a given country. This approach is used to calculate inflation or deflation rates for certain years. The second method is used to use the Consumer Price Index. The Consumer Price Index is a price index that tracks the change in the price of a collection of consumer goods. The Consumer Price Index is used to quantify the change in the price of goods for all of our baskets of goods over a certain period if we are accustomed to buy items every month using a basket. Inflation is measured using the annual percentage change in the Consumer Price Index. In the nutshell, the GDP deflator is utilized on a broad scale, whereas the Consumer Price Index indicator is employed on a smaller one.
So the next one is I will explain the impact inflation to Malaysian economy. There are two impacts which is positive and negative. I will explain the positive impact first. The first one is moderate inflation will encourage savers to replace loans to save money as a way to finance future expenses. This replacement will cause real interest rates to fall. Lower real rates will drive more loans to be made to finance investment. In a similar vein, inflation will cause business to substitute investment in physical capital, for example plant, equipment and inventory, for the balance of money in their asset portfolios. The second one is moderate inflation permits the labor market to attain equilibrium more rapidly because it allows real wages to decline while nominal earnings remain steady. There is enough room to implement monetary policy change. The capacity to establish discount rates is lending rates from the central bank and open market operations. When the central bank intervenes in the bond market with the goal of affecting nominal interest rates are the key tools for regulating the money supply. If an economy is a recession and the nominal interest rate is near zero, banks will be unable to decrease the rate further to boost the economy, since negative nominal interest rates are impossible. The last one is the Mander-Tobin effect, is the name given to these two interconnected phenomena. Additional investment as a consequence of this impact will be considered as good unless the economy is already over-invested based on theoretical models of economic development. The first effect is a continuous fall in price that results in non-spending incentives, causing instability caused by growing fears. Therefore, the long-term deflationary regime is likely to be hampered by periodic inflation and emerging economic disruptions. Next is negative impact to economy. The first one is people's cost of living will rise as a result of high inflation, lowering their standard of life. The allocation of production elements is also inefficient and harmful to the economy. Individuals' actual income will be reduced as a result of inflation. Secondly is inflation will have an impact on domestic investment. The production of export products and services may lose competitiveness when prices rise. Export profits will suffer as a result of this loss of competitiveness and investment in these industries. As a result, local business that endure inflation will lose market share to overseas firms. Inflation will undoubtedly have a significant impact on local business. Another negative impact to Malaysian economy is the socio-economic impact. Profiteering is rampant and consumers are victims of trader exploitation. Traders and corporate bodies use this opportunity to raise the price of goods and services. The party who does not want to bear the burden of the increase will pass on the excess cost to another party, whether the supplier or the retailer, and the victim is the consumer. And the last one is the increased high oil price will affect the increase in the price of goods, especially the price of food items. Food materials, whether in a raw, semi-processed or already processed form, need to be transported from the place of production or processing to the place of the marketing. The increase in transportation costs and processing costs will of course be passed on to consumers by raising the price of the good transport. So I will pass to the next presenter.
So next is impact inflation to Malaysian society. The positive impact we can see on society is that demand pull inflation will encourage firms to increase production. Demand pull inflation occurs when demand exceeds supply. It means that numerous people want to buy goods, so the factory firms will make more goods. So if a factory firm wants to make more goods, it needs more labor and employment. Therefore, it will take more workers and cause more job opportunities, and the unemployment rate will decrease. Eventually, society will achieve full employment. In Malaysia, some individuals are unemployed. This is because, according to the latest figures from the Department of Statistics Malaysia, DOSM, Malaysia's unemployment rate grew to 772,900 individuals in February 2021, up from 4.8% in December 2020. We can observe that bountiful businesses are giving work opportunities to the unemployed. The community will eventually be fully employed. Inflation opens up employment opportunities to the unemployed population. So next is the negative effect that will be received by the society. The negative effect that will be received by society is the rising cost of living. The cost of living refers to the cost that households must incur in order to satisfy fundamental needs such as food, clothes, and housing, as well as additional needed for comfort. For instance, education, broadband connection prices, and daily transportation expenditures. Today, society is being squeezed by an increase in income that does not keep pace with growing living costs. Theoretically, the greater the expense of living, the lower customers' purchasing power. Individuals' real income will be reduced by inflation, which will have a negative impact on their buying power and general quality of life if the rate of price increase or inflation rate is substantially higher than the rate of increase in individual money income. Rising subsistence expenses, which are currently above most people's mean of income per capita, have an impact on safety aspects. The key element that is enabling this dangerous crime to develop is a lack of money to spend and obtain quick luxury, which is occurring in tandem with dramatic increases in the pricing of products, services, and basic necessities. So next, the second negative is distribution. As the country faces inflation, the effects of distribution are deeply felt. People who save, who receive pensions, who have bonds and insurance policies, the real value of their savings, the value of pensions, the value of their bonds or insurance policies are declining. This is due to the fact that during inflation, real interest rates are low and may be negative compared to conditions without inflation. For those who are in debt and who are in debt, income redistribution will also take place. For those who are in debt, they are fortunate because the true value of the debt payments paid has decreased compared to the previous situation. Those who give debt will lose because the true value of debt payments received becomes lower than in a situation without inflation. In addition, an increase in the price of goods will cause individual spending to increase and cause our savings or savings to decrease. For example, in the past, by only using 50 ringgit, people could buy various goods or services, but now with 50 ringgit, we can only buy a few items. This shows that the value of our currency is declining.
Okay, the next part is policies that can overcome inflation. Firstly, monetary policy. A major consideration has been the impact of monetary policy on financial circumstances. As a result, monetary policy must strike a balance between the need to boost the economy, maintain moderate inflation, and prevent incentivizing excessive financial risk-taking. Monetary policy has avoided setting extremely low interest rate for long periods of time. Low interest rates have a tendency to create various financial imbalance, particularly in a high saving society like Malaysia. The monetary policy committee believe that avoiding protracted periods of negative interest rate together with additional policy tools like a micro and macroprudential measure is the best way to ensure that monetary policy support both microeconomy and financial stability. Secondly is supply side policy. This policy import liberalization and ingenious production to keep prices under control. The latter comes in the shape of Green Book Initiative, which is program Bukit Hijau, which encourage people to grow vegetables in their backyard. Malaysia is also known for employing the Price Control Act to implement administrative action in the form of price limits on basic products and services, especially during festival seasons. Some of these steps can be implemented right away depending on their applicability in the current situation.
So this is the point of view about the issues. Malaysia is not exception to face a rising price of goods following the COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, it cannot be avoided because it also happens all over the world. University Kuala Lumpur Business School Economy Analyst, Assos Prof. Dr. Aimizul Hazmi Abdul Rashid said, the weakness of the currency and the country's dependence on import goods with the raw materials of food further increase the impact of inflation and rising price. She said the situation of rising price of goods, mainly in a rural area, was the real reality of the impact of the movement control order on the national economy. Inflation needs to be addressed is to avoid the rising cost of living. This will have a big impact, especially on the community, because they have to spend more and it indirectly affect their standard of living. Especially for those on low incomes, this inflation will cause a real income to decline. This inflation also needs to be overcome because it will contribute to the country exports. Competitiveness will be affected, in turn unable to attract foreign countries to do business. Therefore, purchasing power will also decrease. If this problem persists and is not addressed quickly, it poses a huge problem to the country. So, many efforts are made by the government and the country to reduce the problem of inflation. For example, as a measure of the level inflation that occurs, various economic indicators are used including gross national product. It aims to measure to the total value of final goods and service produced by a country factors of production within a year. Apart from that, nominal or current GNP is the total value of final goods and service produced by a country's production factors based on the price in the year calculated. There are numerous other economic indicators that are not listed, such as real GNP, potential GNP, and so on.
To sum up everything that had been stated so far, inflation is defined as an increase in the overall level of prices of goods and services in an economy over time. Real inflation begins after full employment as a result of an excess of aggregate demand over aggregate supply. Half inflation is defined as an increase in the price level before full employment. Inflation has a significant impact on economic growth. Inflation must be kept to a manageable level. The National Central Bank plays an important role in controlling inflation and other related economic activities. So, the inflation rate must be properly controlled by the Central Bank of a particular country. We are able to explore fresh talks on the subject of inflation as a result of the process of creating this report. Prior to the conclusion of this report, we were able to meet the goals we set up for ourselves. On the basis of microeconomics problems, we have really learned more understanding. We learned the fundamental concept of inflation only through our study, which consisted of papers and reports that we read and discuss. The government should take whatever steps are necessary to keep inflation under control, rather than focusing on just one of the three policies, as previously stated and published. Every other nation or country in the globe should make macroeconomic problems a top concern. Countries and nations from all over the world must take precautions and fear the matter of inflation, as it has bad effects on the economy of their country and more so its beloved citizens.